So today I wanted to talk about a stigmatized subject, postpartum depression. So whether you want to be baby blues, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, whatever you want to call it, I wanted to address the struggles that I had postpartum. I have been wanting to make a video like this before I even started YouTube. It's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to start YouTube. But I have been hesitant on making it simply because it is stigmatized. It's a really vulnerable subject for me. I'm opening myself up to criticism, opinions that I don't really care to have, but I know it'll come with that. I know there will be people who don't understand postpartum depression. I know there's going to be people who feel like, how can someone in with some of my circumstances have any struggles postpartum? But what I experience is real, what a lot of women experience is real, and I want to make this video because I think since many women don't talk about it, we often feel alone in our struggles afterwards. You know, it's supposed to be this glorious, beautiful time where you birth your child and, you know, we're all supposed to be happy. And I think a lot of women are happy for that, but the misconception is that if you're unhappy or if you're depressed, that you're not grateful to be a mother, and the two do not go hand in hand. So I just wanted to, you know, like give a space for women to feel like I'm not alone, what I'm feeling is real, I'm not crazy, and what I'm feeling is okay. So I hope that, you know, anyone watching this can get that comfort from it. I may be a little bit of rambling, I don't know. I'm just literally gonna spit out my experience and I hope the best comes out of this video. I had my first baby about a little over 2.5 years ago. I really truly enjoyed my pregnancy. I was looking forward to motherhood and looking forward to being a mom. I've always known I wanted to be a mom. And you know, it all started off by prepping for my birth, which was supposed to be like very natural. I was like hardcore gung-ho, like I'm gonna do it natural. I wanted to be in my birth center and everything. And when I gave birth, plans quickly changed. You can watch my birth video that I'll link above if you want to see the story behind that. But the plans quickly changed, and I then tried to do the natural labor in the hospital, and then that changed again, and I ended up getting a C-section. So, you know, it's like there I am, I'm laying on a table. They cut her out of my abdomen, and, you know, of course, they try to pass her to me so I could hold her for the first time. And in that moment, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't hold her. I'm so afraid to hold her because I am literally exhausted. I can barely hold my eyes open for another second, and I was afraid of falling asleep and dropping her. And you know, it's like, it's supposed to be this beautiful moment, but I was so exhausted I couldn't appreciate it. So they gave Leia to my husband, and I got to see her for the first time like 30 minutes later in the postpartum room. I mean, I got to see her after they showed her to me, but I couldn't hold her. So I held her for the first time in the postpartum room 30 minutes afterwards, and we immediately breastfed, and it was a really good bonding moment. Like, I couldn't believe, like, this is my baby in my hands. Later that night, I remember I was finally, you know, like by myself, and everything kind of calmed down. Everyone was sleeping, and in the middle of the night, next thing you know, I just found myself just crying. Like, I was just crying to myself, and I'm like, wow, like, what is wrong? I guess my labor really got to me, because my labor was extremely intense. Like, I was unmedicated for the most part, no epidural, because that was my plan. But it was just like long and drawn out, and I had complications with her positioning. So it was just very like taxing on me. And then to have such a plan and like all this preparation to have a natural birth, and then to end up having a C-section was like a little disappointing. So I guess it didn't hit me until that night when I could process it. And like I said, I just started crying. And when I was done crying, I thought, okay, you know, I got it on my system. I know that, of course, things in life don't go as planned, and that's okay. You know, move past it, and so be it. And I genuinely thought that I did. But now, looking back, I realized that that was really just the start of all of my the difficulties I had postpartum. And to this day, like, you'll keep hearing me say postpartum struggles because I don't know what to call it. Like, I don't know if it was prolonged baby blues. I don't know if it was postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. Like, there's all these definitions for the problems that women have with their emotional well-being after having a baby. But all I know is I wasn't right. Mentally, emotionally, I was not feeling good. And it lasted quite a while for me. I would say through phases in the first year, like in and out, I struggled. So postpartum blues, it normally experienced like in the first 2 weeks postpartum. They say a lot of it is due to your hormonal shifts. And I definitely experienced baby blues. I remember the first 2 weeks after having Leia, I cried so much at the drop of a hat for nothing. And I am not a big crier. I consider myself to be a pretty emotionally stable person. I've had no history of depression in any shape or form, anxiety, like none of that. I'm a very happy, positive person. So for me to have these struggles afterwards was just really, it was honestly really surprising. I would have never in a million years expected myself to have these issues. But the first 2 weeks afterwards, I was an emotional wreck. I would just cry for no reason. I couldn't even explain myself. It didn't make sense to me sometimes, but all I knew is that in that moment, I wanted to cry. I remember one time, Lamar, we were all sitting down and I just started bawling, crying because I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to sit down and watch you play video games anymore. I was crying to Lamar. What? Like, what am I crying about? You know, but clearly it was the shift of my previous life to my new life as a mother. And you know, I think that one thing you really have to acknowledge as a new mom is like you're grieving your old life. You know, you could look at it, I think a more positive way to look at it is to look at it as a new beginning or a new chapter in your life because you become a parent, you have new responsibilities. But of course that is me being able to look at it in a positive light once I have stepped outside of that, you know, sad little bubble. In the moment, I wanted to look at it as a new beginning, but that's not what I was feeling inside. I was just feeling broken, unsure, not confident. I don't know. I just really was, I was like off bad. Like prior to having a baby, at least me, I move how I wanted to. I was in my career. I was at a high. I would hang out with my friends at the drop of a hat, do whatever I want. I had my independence. And you know, I was the only person that I was responsible for. And then literally in like a second, you then become responsible for another human life who is totally, utterly, completely dependent on you. They can't do anything without you. So every moment of your life now becomes about them. And don't get me wrong, it is a beautiful thing, but I'm more so focused on the mother's perspective and the mother's mental state in this conversation. So please, like, you know, I want to be clear that I'm not complaining or nothing like that. I'm just literally explaining the struggles in it and the shifts in it that moms have to deal with. So along with the hormonal changes and grieving your past and the life-changing things, you know, I was dealing with all that in the first 2 weeks, and then I was also dealing with struggles breastfeeding. So here's another thing that, you know, I'm expecting, okay, moms breastfeed, like it's just what you're naturally supposed to do, like what could possibly go wrong? And for me, the first day when I was in the hospital, Leia latched and it was fine. So I was like, okay, great, breastfeeding is going good. Second day, it was good. I think I got discharged on the third day. And when I got home later that day, I noticed that there was like a white line on my nipples, on my left nipple. I'm like, that looks weird, and it started to get a little uncomfortable, but I'm new to breastfeeding. I don't know anyone who's breastfed. I mean, my mom did, but obviously I didn't see my mom breastfeeding. So I have no experience with it. So I saw that and I'm like, okay, that doesn't look right, but I don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna keep on going. And then I think by like the next day or two, that white turned into like cracked nipples, and it started bleeding after Leia would breastfeed. And it was excruciating pain. It was really, really, really painful. So when Leia would wake up, I would literally get anxiety because I knew I would have to put her on my breast, which was very painful, like curling toes painful. But I wanted to breastfeed. I was determined to breastfeed, and my baby has to eat. So it was like a catch-22. Like, okay, you're about to endure pain every time your baby wakes up and wants to eat, but Jay has to wake up and eat. And I was very, 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 very determined to breastfeed. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give her breast milk from my breast. And it's the early days, I definitely wasn't ready to try any pumping. I hate pumping anyways, but I wasn't ready to try pumping. So it gave me a lot of anxiety. And I remember after about a week, I was fed up. I couldn't take it anymore. It was excruciating. And I think it was a Sunday, I Googled a lactation consultant, and I got on the phone with her, and I tried to be strong, and I just broke down on the phone, saying, I can't do this, I need help, it's so painful. I mean, I don't know this lady at all, but I just started breaking down, crying to her. And she just told me, okay, give that breast some relief, get a pump. And the next day she came and worked with me to improve her latch and all these things. So it did get better. It took some time to get to a point where there was no pain, but it definitely improved, and I didn't have so much anxiety as it relates to breastfeeding. But during that first 2 weeks, that was just added on to the typical transition of motherhood. So at the end of 2 weeks, my crying spell stopped. It was a hard stop. So I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I did just have baby blues. I'm better now. But sure enough, my symptoms, they came back. I wasn't crying nearly as often, but I did cry every now and then. I think the biggest feeling that I had was, it was this heaviness in my chest. I would feel I don't know if you've ever had a breakup or something, and when you break up and you're going through the motions or whatever, you have this lingering feeling, heaviness in your chest, and that's what I was feeling, and I could not shake it. I would try to think positive. I would think why am I feeling like this? I'm this is what I want to be a mother. I'm happy to have my baby, all these things. So why am I feeling this heaviness, this sadness that I can't shake? It was I had this combination of I love my baby, I'm happy to be a mom, but I'm not happy in my space right now. It was just the weirdest feeling. And to this day, I don't know what I was feeling. I don't know what I experienced. I know I experienced baby blues. I don't know if what I had would be clinical depression or clinical postpartum depression. All I could tell you was I felt deeply sad. The only reason why I'm saying I don't know if it was clinical depression is because I didn't have any resentment or anger towards Leia. And I didn't do things stop eating or anything of that nature. It was really just a deep sadness and a deep feeling of unhappiness. What I did do, I definitely lacked self-care though. That was out the window. There were a lot of factors that led to me feeling that way. When I look back on it, I know for one is that I had no experience and I was very naive. I'm the only child. I have no experience with babies. I don't have nieces and nephews. A lot of my friends didn't have small kids, and if they did, I didn't interact with them in that way for me to know what it's like to have a newborn. So I went in thinking, okay, they eat, poop, sleep, right? That's what everyone says. So how hard can that be? And let me tell you, it is a whole nother ballgame, because this little human is solely, entirely, completely reliant on you. And if you're doing it alone, that pressure of that dependency is times a million. So I was getting a lot of my information from YouTube and from online resources, and which wasn't really that good, because I would go on YouTube and everyone's, they put up this perfect picture of how life is, and it was not mirroring what I was experiencing at home. So it made me feel a little bit like a failure, or I'm not doing something right. And I would read things that would say, you gotta prevent SIDS, so you don't co-sleep with your baby. You have to put them in a bassinet. You have to put them on their back with nothing, no blankets, DockATot. They say don't do bad sleeping habits. Don't nurse your baby to sleep. Don't rock them too much. Don't wear them too much. Or they're gonna wait all these things to go to sleep, and they're never gonna know how to sleep by themselves. And just all this stuff. And the thing that was worse about it was all these things were what I was doing and what was working. So for me to be nursing my baby to sleep, for instance, which came naturally, put her on my boob, she fell asleep. I was like, oh, this is great. Then I read something that says, oh, it's a bad habit. I literally to this day cannot stand the advice that is put out there to moms. I think it is anxiety inducing, and I think it is unfortunate that it is put out like it's right or it's correct. I feel like if they want to put it out as advice or a suggestion, then sure, but I think that it should be noted that it is biologically normal to fall asleep on nursing. Like, it's a great gift, actually. It is biologically normal for babies to want motion to go to sleep. It is biologically normal for a baby to want to sleep with you. Like, but if you don't want to do those things, then here's what you can do. I feel like that's how it should be presented, but it's more so presented like, no mom, you're doing bad things if you follow these patterns, and you're giving your child bad habits. It's pretty much like mom shaming. I hate to go there, but it is. And so I felt that way. I felt like, wow, well, I'm doing everything wrong. And so I spent so much time trying to put Leia in the bassinet, for instance, which she absolutely hated. She would cry every time I put her in the bassinet in the early days. She just wanted to be with me. And after a few days of trying, I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm bringing her in the bed. I'm doing it. And I looked it up and I saw like what is it called? The 7 safe sleep habits, something like that, where it's like, you move the pillow out the way, make sure the surface is as hard as possible, leave the blankets down, like all that kind of stuff. And I breastfed her. I think it's called the Safe Sleep 7. So I did that, and I mean, the moment I did that, we started sleeping better. She got better sleep, I got better sleep. I had reduced anxiety, at least in that area. And I also started following like a Facebook group of moms who kind of had like a similar approach to me, where you nurse to sleep, you co-sleep, and I did baby wearing a lot, all those kind of things. So once I let that go, I started feeling much better. But the anxiety came from the idea that I'm not supposed to do those things, because I guess people want to promote independence or whatever. And as a new mom, I didn't know any different. If I could have just had someone like my mom, for instance, in my corner telling me, it's okay, this is what I did, or this is how a lot of moms do, or everyone does things differently, do what works for you, then it would have been better. But I didn't. I was so vulnerable and naive in that moment that I didn't realize that I even needed to ask for help. I felt like, and here goes mom guilt, I felt like I'm a mom, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to figure it out, when in fact I should have really been asking for more help. And then another layer on top of it was that I was living in Houston. I'm not from Houston. I was there because of the nature of my husband's job. So I literally had no family. I don't have family there. He doesn't have family there. We were there solely for work. So I had no support. I would spend hours every day by myself, basically like, work hours. My husband had just sustained a major injury on his knee and got surgery, which is another thing. And so he would be spending his days in rehab. It was the off season, but because he was injured, he had rehab. Rehab, you would think, okay, like it's like an hour or something, but no, it was really like work hours. It was all day. So here I am being naive and dumb and at home, not knowing anything, but I'm by myself. And so like, I genuinely, the bottom of my heart, do not think that motherhood is something that is supposed to be done alone. And I really think that doing motherhood alone or in isolation is like a huge risk factor to having postpartum depression or postpartum struggles afterwards. So I was by myself, hours on hours on hours, not knowing what I'm doing. And when you're by yourself, like you don't realize that you literally have to do everything with your baby. So, I would go to the bathroom, and sure enough, she was right there with me on the toilet. Or I would put her in a little lounger, like on the floor. I literally have like 100 pictures of Leia in the bathroom with me. You got to figure out, how am I going to shower? When am I going to shower? Especially like in situations for me, I could not put Leia down for naps. I mean, it was very rare. Occasionally, I would just keep trying, but I had to hold her for naps. So I would literally be there for like 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, just holding her on my chest while she naps. And sometimes, I have to pee or whatever, so I'll like have to schedule my pee times around when she has to nap. I mean, I couldn't literally schedule it, but I had to like revolve it around her, So it's just like these little things that really weigh on you. And then the house, you're like, you still gotta do laundry, you still have to figure out how to eat. It's just like, I just think that support is so important when you have a baby. And that's something that I was struggling with. On top of that, I was also, I hear my baby crying. This is okay. I'm back. with my Baba. My mom was trying to help me, but he's out there crying. Things aren't going good. These past few days have been rough. He's been crying a lot more. I don't know why. Like, and wanting me. And when he gets in my arms, he'll stop crying. It's 3 months now, like 3.5. So I don't know. So to add on top of all of that, 2 months into having Leia, the pandemic started. And I don't know if you guys remember, but the beginning of the pandemic was crazy. It was like a true lockdown. People buying toilet paper. There was no more, stocking your fridge. It was absolutely insane. We went to Miami at that time, so we were renting an apartment temporarily. So, we're like confined to this space that I'm not even familiar with. I couldn't see anybody. And although we were home in Miami, because it was such intense lockdown time, we still weren't really around family. And I think to add, while I was in the moment, I didn't really realize that I needed support. Like, I just knew that I was struggling, and obviously I would love help, but I think, sometimes it's hard to ask for help, and that was something I needed to improve on. And this time around, I'm asking for all the help. Like, and I'm not shy about it. So yeah, there was this continuous isolation, and Lamar would be there during this time. He was there more, but and he would help me as much as possible. I even remember he started cooking a little bit. I think during that time though, I kind of was okay. I had good days and bad days, and I started being able to put Leia down more. But then when we moved into my house, which Leia was about 4 or 5 months at that time, I started feeling this sadness again. And I think that it was partially because I thought that by that age, things would be a little different, or I would be able to do more things on my own, but I couldn't. Like, I still felt like I was inadequate. I still felt like I couldn't keep the house clean. I still felt like I couldn't cook enough. I still felt like I could just do nothing. What's wrong? Y'all, this has been the hardest video to film. The past 2 days between Leia and Mello, it's been a little rough. This is not my first time trying to record this. So, like I said, if I'm rambling and stuff, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to share what I can and get to the video, Papa. So, yeah, I think by that time I thought things would get better, and they weren't, and it just wasn't really improving. I think I felt this inadequacy, and I started feeling like I lost my purpose. I felt like, what am I doing? Like, I'm home all day, every day. I don't go anywhere. And because of the pandemic, it was like everything I did gave guilt. Like, if I just wanted to go to the grocery store, it made me feel guilty, because I was like, I'm exposing myself and I'm exposing my child to danger with COVID. So I couldn't move out my house without it. And I think that was another thing. I was home every single day from morning to night. It was so repetitive, mundane, like all of that. I needed to get out more, and I realized that later too, that being home every single day, which was a total contrast from the way I lived my life prior to having a child, really got to me. And that's another thing I recommend, is getting out the house, like even if it's just to go for a walk. I think that being a mom really made me realize how much of my pride and success is rooted in my productivity, and how much can I get done and what I've achieved. And so being at home and not being able to do anything, although caring for my child is extremely important, that's not how I was seeing it, because the previous 29 years of my life, I was in school, I was getting my degrees, I was working as a nurse prior to having my baby, and all of that stopped, and I was no longer working. And because of my husband's injury, we left Houston, and so I didn't have that job there, so I didn't have the option of going back. And that was something else. I even considered going back to work, because I felt so unworthy. I don't know, I was so out of it. And I was like, I know that's not what I really wanted to do, because I wanted to be home with my baby, and I was grateful to be home with her. But at the same time, I was like, how do I feel better? Like, maybe if I just get a little break and I do something that gives me a sense of achievement. It was rough, but with COVID and everything, I was like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, and I think a lot of it too has to do with your personality. Like, are you more type A? Are you more type B? Because I think if you're type B and you're more relaxed, go with the flow of things, I think that the transition probably is a little bit easier. I think if you're type A, very structured, very much want to be like in control of everything, I think the transition can be more difficult because you cannot control a baby. Like, you can try to help them along and steer them along, but a baby is gonna do what a baby wants to do. Like, and every baby is different. So some babies, they may just fall asleep on their own. Other babies need to be rocked more. Some babies take to breastfeeding very well. Other people have problems breastfeeding. Like, you just don't know what you're gonna get, and trying to control it, I think, is just it's just pretty unrealistic, and I think personally it adds more stress. So if you're a type A person, I think that it can also be more anxiety inducing. I think I'm like somewhere in between. I'm go with the flow, but I also like some like structure and order and things like that. So I was somewhere in between, and I tried to be, I never did like a hard schedule. I did like a light routine. I just followed Leia's patterns, but I think it was a lack of being able to like control my home and do it all, I think, is what really got to me. I think a big trigger was short naps, like in consecutive days, when I would only be able to put her down for like 30 minutes, which basically meant I couldn't get much done at all. That really what gets me. Those would be when I would have my sad moments. And I remember after that, I would come out and be like, oh, well, like, what was wrong with me? Like, when, like, let's say on the 4th day, she'll give me a long nap and my mood would improve, and I'd be like, it's just like a little phase, but I couldn't control it, like I said. And you know, that's what I mean when I say when you have support, those little things, I feel like they don't get to you as much because you're not trying to do it all by yourself. Man, I'm rambling. But yeah, I would just feel like I'm moving through the days. Like, I'm just taking it day by day. And I remember people would tell me, oh, the first year, like, it goes by so fast, it grows so fast. And I'm like, what? These days are long and dragging. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I would feel so embarrassed that I would be like, yeah, it goes so fast. But ooh, I felt like every day was just like slow motion. Like, I'm just trying to get through it, make it to the next day. Things will get better. When will they get better? I remember I would Google things like, when does it get better? I remember I would Google things like, I don't like being a stay-at-home mom because I hated it. It is the most repetitive, boring thing ever, at least in the beginning. Now I'm okay with it. I've gotten used to it, but that transition was very hard for me. And then after that, later on, my husband ended up going to Chicago for his job. So we were then in Chicago for like the cold months. I think it was like October and November, which again, I was extremely isolated. We were in a little hotel room for a little while, and then we got a 1-bedroom apartment. And so we were there for a while. Now that was really, really lonely. And then after that, we went to Washington, D.C. for a month. So at that time, Leia was like 11 months. So once again, I was by myself. So it was just like all these, the isolation, the loneliness was really like the biggest factor. I wanted to make sure that I don't experience that again. I was really afraid because it was one of the lowest points in my life emotionally. Like I said, I've never dealt with like anxiety or depression. I never expected myself to be going through that. So I just tried to really like analyze everything and see how I can make sure it doesn't happen with Mello. And so this time around, aside from the fact that I've already been used to staying at home now, I'm more familiar with having a kid. Those things came naturally. I've figured out more of a system. I appreciate being a stay-at-home mom now. But aside from that, I was like, I need support. And thank goodness my mom retired in June and I had Mello in July. So my mom has been able to be home with me and help with like, a lot of times she cooks, like that's just her thing. She always cooks, so it's nothing for her to come here and cook because like she was gonna do it at home anyways. So she's been cooking a lot, which helps me not have to think about meals. And then she can, because she's here, she also helps me with the little things like if I wanna, go to the bathroom or take a shower, she can just watch him really quickly while I get that done. So that's been really nice just to have those little breaks. And I also get out a lot more, way more than I did when I had Leia. So, we'll just go to the park, or honestly, I have Leia, so I can't stay home all day. Like, we have to get her out of the house and do activities. So we'll do activities with Leia, or we'll just be out and about. We're no longer in the pandemic. So COVID is still here, but I know we're not in the pandemic anymore. So we get out now without any guilt. So that's been nice too. I also, we normally have someone who comes and cleans every 2 weeks, but we had her come an extra time, so now she comes weekly and she'll help with a little bit of laundry, so that's taking a big load off of me. And yeah, I do things the same. I co-sleep, I nurse to sleep, I baby wear, I do all of that, but this time I just do it with no guilt because it's what works. And I try to stay looking cute. You know, like right now my nails are not done. You know, we gonna work on that, but I did do my toenails, so at least I can keep up with that. I can't let my toenails not get done. But I've been keeping up with my nails. I try to do my hair more. I throw on makeup more, which was like an absolute not happening when I had Leia. I was like incapable. It got to a point where I like forgot how to do makeup. I looked a hot mess. And you know, those things really make you feel better when you just keep up with yourself a little bit. I don't really do makeup unless I'm like filming or going out somewhere. But I will try to like, you know, brush my hair and things like that. And it's also easier for me to keep up with my hair, which is a job because I have my mom here and my husband is home more too, so he can help me as well. Are you standing? Yeah, and I think also with experience, I know that everything is a phase, so I have given myself a little bit more grace when I can't get things done. But with all of the help that I'm really fortunate to have, I've been, you know, able to manage things better, and I give myself some grace when I can't get done. It does still bother me, I can't lie. And with a toddler, it's a whole nother level because one thing a toddler is gonna do is make a mess. Oh my God. One thing a toddler is gonna do is make a mess, and oh, it gets messy. And that I think is the one thing that like I try to just tell myself it's okay. It's, you know, we're gonna get better at this, but my God, you know, we do the best we can. I think that if you're wondering if you're doing your best, then that probably means that, you know, you are doing your best and you're really trying. At least you're asking yourself those questions. And you know, being a mom, it can be hard. I also try to let go of all the rules. Like I said, I do all the posting and everything. I really don't like the rules. I feel like it's it's a lot of pressure on moms, and I think that pressure comes from this push for independence. And because a lot of moms do have to go back to work early, and so if you have to go back, you know, at 3 months, let's say, then you want your child to be able to sleep better. You want your child to not have to need to be rocked to sleep and all those kind of things because you gotta go to work and get things done. So, you know, I totally understand that and get that, and I hate that is pushed. I wish that moms had longer maternity leave, like a year. 6 months at least, but a year would be okay. And like, if you want to go back before that, go back, because I get that too. Like I said, I was contemplating. I was like, oh, I need a break. But at least like if we could have that option, I think it would reduce anxiety and more moms would be able to breastfeed and just like calmly be a parent. Do whatever works for you, whatever makes you happy, because becoming a mom is the most important job we can ever have. You know, when you have the best version of yourself, you can be the best mom. So I will say though, I gave my all to Leia. Sad. And I'm happy to be able to have pictures and look back, because sometimes when I remember my first year, I tend to remember how hard it was. When I look at pictures, I remember how many happy moments that she and I shared and how much I truly poured into her. So, you know, take a lot of pictures, and those memories, it really does go fast. You know, it feels, because sometimes it can feel slow in the moment, but when you look back, you realize like, wow, it went by so quickly. And I think that that's what parents mean. They just grow up. They just become so big. Like the early days, they go from baby to walking to talking so fast. Well, I think he's getting ready to run a nap, and I gotta change his diaper, and he wants to breastfeed. This video, it was a lot of rambling. I hope I got my point across. I feel like I could have gotten across a little bit better, but it is what it is. I can't film this again. So this is just gonna be what I put out. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys struggled after having a baby, let me know, drop it in the comments, and thanks for watching.